Let us jump in. It's my honor to introduce a great visionary leader, a strategist, relationship builder in corporate real estate with a career spanning some of the largest companies in the world, including consulting in the Big Four and in global commercial real estate. Today, he's currently serving as the head of real estate and portfolio services for a KKR company at PetVet's. And he's had international experience, including launching a joint venture in India and Thailand, as well as founding two advisory and management firms that were specializing in investment and development. Let's welcome Lee Allen. Lee, great to have you.
Thank you, Taj. Appreciate the kind words.
Absolutely. I was going to say you take the cake because the cake is gone. Let's jump into these questions. So, you certainly understand real estate risk. And from that lens, why don't you share a little bit about your background, why you joined PetVet's, and what are some of the strategic requirements that needed your role in the organization?
Sure. Well, I'll start by saying, PetVet Care Centers is not only a rapidly growing, moving from acquisitions into operation-based company, but we're a strong founder-led company, right? So a lot of what we're going to talk about today is iterative growth through a very solid, structured leadership group, right? So we've benefited from that for sure. But a little bit about my background, in addition to kind of what you briefly mentioned, I've really spent my career kind of at the intersection, if you will, of real estate strategy, business transformation, and kind of operational growth and leadership. Before joining PetVet, when I was in the Big Four consulting, my time was spent in the M&A side of the house. So mergers and acquisitions, that constant drive of change, improvement, was really what I was focused on beyond just the global real estate. And then in spending time with the world's largest commercial real estate firm, was able to kind of balance my time across three different tranches, from sales, operational leadership, and then into executive leadership while I was there. So I was able to kind of formulate over the last 25 years of my career many different opportunities, right? That were not industry specific or corporate vertical specific, but more about how to solve complex problems and drive operational change, right? And PetVet was a great candidate for that. Prior to my time there, and kind of what came to help me lead that process was, prior to my time, a lot of the corporate real estate function was decentralized, right? It was decentralized across operations and finance and legal and et cetera. But there wasn't a proper, what we would consider to be a corporate real estate function within the group. And, over the last 2 years, my goal has been to kind of grow and formulate this into not only a refined or sophisticated corporate real estate practice to support business growth, but is also to help us as we balance kind of rapid expansion with sustainable growth, right? And ensuring that our decisions support our long-term vision. So that's really what led me there, was kind of the operational ability of a green field, if you will.
Okay. Describe what does that mean, sustainable growth?
Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, businesses that are focused primarily on acquisitional growth strategies, mm-hmm. right? During certain market periods, it's very easy to get very big. And during those periods of rapid growth, there's a balance that should occur between standardizing processes, standing up operational matrix, so that when your growth occurs or continues to occur, it's built on operational paradigms that are scalable, right? So being able to drive strategy in a scalable manner that can help ensure that smart growth and sustainable.
Got it. Yeah. And from your prior role, it was CBRE, correct? I mean, that's the global real estate firm.
Yep.
I mean, you've seen all sorts of types of growth from small to large. Where does KKR's investment in PetVets, where does that fit in the kinds of deals that you've seen as you take your expertise and apply it here?
Well, for us, KKR is a great partner, right? They're a great strategic partner that brings a lot to the table for us, right? They've got very solid experience across multiple market verticals and industries, especially when you consider kind of the multi-market retail industry, right? Which our model could fit into. Beyond their broad experience across a plethora of different organizations, they also have a lot of in-house talent, right? That has been a driving factor in our growth as we look at kind of the old adage of what got you here was adequate, but what we need to get to the next level is going to require some sustainable growth and repeatable actions and scalable opportunities. So, I would like to just definitely throw a bone out to KKR because their involvement has been very critical in our growth.
That's wonderful to hear. I mean, certainly in the whether it's medtail or veterinary care, there's a whole new model, or it's a different kind of model. You find existing practices and you brand them underneath an umbrella that is, for you, it's called PetVets. What's the strategy to find more veterinary, maybe private veterinary facilities and brand it? Is that part of your purview as well?
Well, so that's partially correct, right? So at PetVet Care Centers, we have kind of the back office brand. That's the PetVet Care Centers that you can look up online and see. But of our 450 plus locations, we don't brand them locally, right? So during the acquisition, our goal is to provide additional resources to locally owned veterinarian care facilities. We acquire those, and then we relegate the medical care to the controlling doctors at that location, right? So it's not like you'll actually see a sign that says PetVet Care Centers, right? It'll say, VRCC or, Dr. Ammon's Pet Hospital. But what we bring to the table are a lot of those scalable back office opportunities, whereas, we've formulated one of the largest medical practices in the country. I think we're number 2 or number 3 in the country. And with that comes compounding amount of knowledge, right? So we under our umbrella have some of the brightest medical minds in veterinarian health. And it gives opportunity for all of our practices to tap into some of that medical knowledge, or some of the procurement leverage that we have with acquiring specific medical equipment that might not be ascertainable, right, to a 3-doctor practice that has 1 or 2 locations, right? But now they have access to some of the top leading medical minds through partnership and all of our internal networking and discussion threads. But we are also able to bring them top line, some of the best medical equipment that's available in the marketplace.
Fascinating. That's good to hear. I mean, because it's all about location, and to the extent that you've got a local name, you don't want to be changing that, right? Whether it's Dr. Hammond's Pet Care or veterinary clinic. Yeah. Any challenges as you've been in this role now for how long?
About 2 years, 2.5 years. Yep.
Yeah. As you look around the corner here with 2025 and 2026, anything new that you've encountered that maybe you didn't foresee when you left CB and joined PetVets?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I'm kind of surprised daily they sometimes change, right? But in looking at maintaining, I think one of the bigger challenges when you do have locally led practices, maintaining operational consistency across a growing footprint can be challenging, while you're also seeking to, ensure strategic site selection and competitive markets. And then taking that and balancing it with the fact that, each one of our markets has a unique dynamic, right? And adopting to those local market dynamics while trying to stay aligned with kind of our core mission could be and typically can be an ongoing challenge. And by, when I say our core mission, really our mission is to make, high quality veterinarian care more accessible to pet owners nationwide. And as we've grown, our focus has kind of expanded beyond access to efficiency, right? Ensuring that our locations are designed and supported properly across the country, but is also to leverage technology and deliver a seamless patient experience. And the goal is not just for us, it's not just to expand, but to refine how we're serving our local communities, right? So again, lessons learned, I think, over the last couple of years is how do you strategically maintain that operational consistency across such a dynamic footprint.
So let's talk about then your day to day. I know every day changes and it's always different, but you mentioned operational consistency. You're heading up the real estate initiatives. Give us a sense of what your time balance is between ops and real estate and site selection and expansion.
Depends on the time of year, right?
Okay, keep going.
Depends on the time of year. I as a core, corporate real estate focus within our company, we do have to balance, and those folks that are on my team, I'm sure we got at least somebody there that's involved listening on this side. They could attest to the fact that, our goal is to be, again, responsive to the needs as they arise. So when we're looking at what are those lease terms that we want to negotiate, how are we managing our data, right? What type of footprint do we want to grow in certain unique geographic locations, and how is that going to be based on performance and market potential and things like that. But in addition, my team we also oversee all of the facility management responsibilities for the 450 locations, right? So there is kind of a paradigm of, probably specifically for myself, 60% is spent on the more of the corporate strategic real estate side. And then probably the remaining percentage is broken up between facility management and then process management standardization.
Okay. Talk a little bit about how geographically diverse all your locations are. I mean, east of the Mississippi, west of the Mississippi, all states.
Yeah, we literally believe now we have a location in almost every state except Montana. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why we're not in Montana yet, because that's one of my favorite states. But so I'm sure that's in the growth plan, right? But for us, when we're looking at how do we prioritize, to your larger question, across that geographically diverse portfolio, for us, it starts with data. We use a portfolio scorecard that ranks our locations based on financial performance. In the background, we can look at market potential or addressable market that's available, evaluating which lease terms we have that are more strategic or, in this case, occupier friendly, and then operational efficiency, right? So when we're looking across that diverse portfolio, that allows us to be maybe more proactive in managing our renewals or looking at relocations or potential market expansions, right? While aligning with those broader business priorities.
Okay, got it. Well, if you don't mind me sharing, you heard it here first. There's a potential to expand into Montana. A lot of horses and dogs, I remember. That's
Montana's a great state.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And no, I don't know of any opportunities that we're looking at right there right now, but I sure hope that we do. So if our BD team is on the call, I hope that we have a special focus on Montana. Yeah.
There we go. So a question came in because you touched on finding and identifying real estate. And now that we know the geographic diversity, pretty much every state. So congratulations on that. It's been phenomenal. The what kind of size of real estate do you typically have? You know, your standard footprint, and also,
Sure.
are you affected at all by some of the lowest vacancy rates that this country's ever seen? Like,
Sure.
how competitive has it been for you?
Sure. So when you think about PetVet Care Center, there's really three different types of, let's call them practice types, if you will, that are available. So the first would be a general practice. That's going to be 2, 3, 5 doctor practice that's somewhere around 4,500 square feet to maybe 6,000 square feet, kind of the Monday to Saturday 9 to 5 kind of thing. The second practice type that we have would be kind of that specialty or urgent care. Those usually have more surgical suites in them. They're 24/7. The place that you might go with your pet if it was, God forbid, on a Friday night hit by a car, right? So those are going to be the larger, a little bit larger, 6 to 8,000 square feet locations. Sometimes they're in retail, broader retail plazas. Sometimes they're standalone buildings. And then the third type is our larger specialty hospitals. So these are where you have, veterinarians that are cardiologists, ophthalmologists, all the different medical dispositions. And those are typically 15 to 24,000 square feet, almost always standalone. And then the last tranche would be our equine business. We take care of some of the strongest racehorses in the country. And our equine practices, we've got one that's well over 127 acres of land with, many, many barns and paddocks, and, it's over 200 years old. To some of our smaller equine facilities that are, 10, 15 acres, right? So across those practice types, we've kind of faced different challenges. With some of the highest vacancy rates that we've seen, we've been able to leverage that to our benefit. PetVet Care Centers has been around for about 10, 12 years now, a little over 12 years. So we're getting to the point now where a lot of those early acquisitions are starting to come up for renewal, right? So we're able to leverage some of those instabilities within the market to our advantage. And it's also given us the opportunity to focus more appropriately on optimization. So where there have been large challenges in vacancy rates, for us, it has given us some advantages in the market. Reset lease terms, get on better terms, evaluate tenant improvement opportunities and things like that. Broader though, I think as we look at expansion in our portfolio, some of the conditions that we're seeing right now, again, can incentivize us to target more specifically those markets where we are fundamentally doing well. We do see a high insurgence of not only pet ownership, but influx of populations, right? And that's happening across the U.S. in a lot of these secondary and tertiary markets.
Yeah.
You're not hearing about the growth in Chicago and L.A. You're hearing about the growth in places like Nashville and Austin and Charleston and Jacksonville and places like that, where we are having to become more competitive, right, in our cost per square foot investment. But again, I think that to us that's posed a lot of benefit.
Yeah, yeah. I love the questions that are coming in, but related to, you were talking about renewals and some of the leases that you had signed up many years ago, they're coming up for renewal. What are the key risk factors that you wish to undo that you've seen in your portfolio, like as it relates to any particular critical clauses, things that you may have inherited as you've expanded before it's time?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I mean, is it
Taj,
like,
not to build you up, brother, but Lease Cake has been really instrumental in fundamentally identifying how we approach our lease management internally, right? So um, prior to the integration with LeaseCake, our lease management strategy, while it was not ad hoc, it was not fundamentally um, addressed or appropriated the attention it should have been, right? So specific to us, right? Because through an acquisition model, as part of our strategy, a lot of times, as in any acquisition model, those sites, if they were owned by the doctor, and in the acquisition, they become our landlords, right? So our lease structures by nature are very, very different. Of over 450 different locations, um, when you take out kind of the real estate investment trust deals or the REITs that we partner with, think about 300, 400 different landlords with a myriad of lease clauses across all of those, right? Because landlords have their own specific requirements. So, obviously, when we're looking at indemnification, we're looking at continued use provisions, we're looking at our annual escalations, right? Things like that could be a differentiator for us in the way that we play out our lease. But PetVet is long term in our focus, right? So our model leases are typically 10 years, right? 10 years with 3 optional 5-year terms on the back end, stuff like that. But when you're looking at multi-market retail right now, and you're willing to come to a landlord with a 10-year lease, with the financial backing that we have, that's a pretty strong offer in this market. A lot of the multi-market retail is pumping out 5-year terms right now. So it gives us a little bit of leverage that we do need. But I mean, yes, to your point, we do track a range of metrics, including revenue per square foot and lease cost. Sometimes lease cost is a percentage of revenue. Looking at kind of our market penetration rates and customer accessibility scores and things like that.
Yeah.
They help us assess whether a location is meeting expectations or if it needs optimization.
Yeah. That's very helpful. I mean, what you touched on with continuous operations, indemnification, we've seen things like personal guarantees that continue to linger from even post sale as it relates, co-tenancy, exclusivity, prohibited uses, and the like. So yeah, that's helpful because you're touching on exactly what we're witnessing as well. Is the smart operators are undoing the things that they maybe inherited or they have the leverage. Because to your point, I mean, you've got the backing of KKR, you got the backing of kind of PetVets as a big system. Your leverage is probably stronger now because you're looking for a larger footprint, 4,500 to 6,500 square feet. And I think, landlords will pay attention to that. So it's like from a scoring perspective, whether it's a QSR versus a PetVets, I think there's, kind of an unequal balance, if you will, depending on the qualification of a smaller operator, as an example.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people there are in the world or in the U.S. right now. I guess what 387 million people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And according to Kinsley, they estimate almost half the population has a pet of some type, right? And so when you think about the addressable market, there's a massive addressable market. But just as anything, whether it's a Jersey Mike's or one of those guys, it's also the addressable income side it's discretionary, right? It's a discretionary fund source that feeds our business, right? So we count on people loving their pets and wanting to take care of their pets, and engaging relationships with our medical practitioners to ensure that their pets are well taken care of. And as a result of that, clauses that are in the lease need to be very specific, especially in pet care, to allow that kind of infusion into the community. Because as you can imagine, some landlords are really concerned that the business type would require hundreds and hundreds of dogs or cats or whatever to be going in and out of their premise, right, or our rented premise on a daily basis, right, and thinking about where are they going to use the restroom and all that kind of stuff. But again, in driving access to care, creating those client experiences for us is really what's important. And, our lease structures need to reflect that, need to reflect our ability not only to provide care for our clients, but also to ensure protection of our brand, right? So exclusivity, right, and things like that we do pay a very close attention to in our leases.
Yeah, great stuff. Um, you mentioned, and I mean, we've all heard this phrase. I mean, COVID definitely proved out the fact that pets are the new kids.
Mm.
People are waiting to get married. People are waiting to have kids, but it's so much easier to buy, have a pet that they love and they care for, and it's definitely just discretionary. So as it relates to the entire ecosystem of pet care and veterinary facilities across the nation, who do you compete with, or how do you position yourself against others that are also in the space?
Mm-hmm. Well, the competition is fierce as in any type of retail multi-market industry. Um, people vote with their checkbooks nowadays, and one bad experience could cost you not only a client or a customer, but could also have tail-on effects as they have conversations on Friday night dinner parties, right? So client care and experience is obviously a differentiator for us. But as I mentioned earlier, right, we don't our goal, even though we're an acquisition-based company, growth-based company, our goal is not to change the front of the house, right? We don't want to, we're not a Bamfield or a Blue Pearl or one of those companies that comes in and mandates standard of care and mandates how doctors will care for their patients, mandates the maximum number of minutes that a doctor can spend with a patient. We don't do that. We, again, as part of our core mission, is to ensure that our local doctors are able to practice the best care possible. And we try to maintain that even through branding in the local communities, i.e., we never change the name of the company, right? We don't come in and say, okay, now you're PetVet Care Centers. So, we kind of live by what we believe. And I think that is a differentiator for us in the marketplace. And I could also share this, is
Yeah.
Working with our CEO closely through many different initiatives over the last couple of years, I could tell he's one of the most accessible CEOs I've ever worked for. He has a heart for what we do, and that is a huge differentiator. Our executive leadership team as a whole, while we obviously are focused on growth and profitability and excellence and all those great operational goals, at the heart of our company there really is a differentiator for doing the right thing. And I think it's one of the brilliant strategies that our founder CEO put into place early, which is we don't want to rebrand. We want to allow medicine to be the guiding principle and not necessarily operational performance to be the operating principle.
Yeah, there's a ton in that makes so much sense, and I think you can look at most models. I mean, there's a Jersey Mike's, it's got a brand, but they lead with charitable giving. The initiatives that they get behind, very locally grown and locally focused. So they have a certain percentage of their sales goes to that charity, and it's cause based. So empathy and EQ, some of the best leaders of very well backed companies, whether it's Rourke or KKR or TSG, like that matters more than anything, I think, now in the world. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to just have certainly for something as intimate as pet care, as personal and as feeling based as pet care, it's making sure that you still have that local feel. You can't say, oh man, my favorite vet is now rebranded. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah. So good questions that are coming across. We have a question regarding different types of tools. How do you assess the market value of your leases or triple nets in a specific area? I mean, any magic sauce?
Well, there's no magic, right? Without naming them here, we partner with some of the best commercial real estate firms in the country, and on a local market basis. And so our local market decisions are based on local market performance. When we're evaluating, whether it's a de novo, whether it's, we're going to move into a new lease, it's going to be based on market comps for sure. And, again, coming in with some of longer lease terms has worked in our favor. But I think having local relationships that drive local market decisions based on local market conditions, right? Because again, everything is about location, location, location.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna go back to pre-CV, let's touch on the risks that you took on personally in your life. I mean, you certainly are somebody pretty bold, how you decided to move to India and Thailand. Touch on that, because I think that speaks volumes to why you're in your role today and why you're succeeding. Give us that backstory.
Well, I don't know whether it was I'm a glutton for punishment, or I'm always looking for the next great opportunity to grow and kind of identify continuous improvement, right? But before all that, there was a time when I remember looking my wife in the face, living in Charleston, beautiful boat, beautiful house, blah blah blah, and I had this great idea. What if we started a joint venture and we sold all this stuff, and then we moved to India? And oh, by the way, we have 3 small kids. We'll bring them with us. And so in addition to kind of maybe some of the quasi quirky things that we've been able to come up with, before CBRE, before PetVet, before the Big Four and all that, I've always had a patient and willing, wonderful wife, right? So it's been willing to do some of that stuff with me. But no, I think like with anything, right? Whether you're transitioning to a new software program or you're working your way through long-term strategic initiatives for growth, there's always that what if scenario, right? So not that we necessarily plan for all those, but sometimes those what ifs can actually be the opportunity, right? What if we thought of moving to India and we found a way to do it and we did it? And one of the beautiful memories that I have specifically of India is my young son William at the time. He couldn't have been any more than 9 or 10 years old, I think, at the time, and learned how to negotiate in Hindi for the price of vegetables with the street vendors. And so like anything, we went there with a one-way ticket. We didn't go there with a return ticket. So we were all in, and I think with all of these changes across my career and things like that, I've kind of done it all with a one-way ticket. My goal is to be all in, and while there is to identify opportunities to continue to grow, continue to improve, and maybe do the hard things and say the hard things that others haven't been willing to do to move the needle, right? And whether that's in my current role, I can't say enough about Lease Cake and what y'all have been able to provide for us from a strategic perspective. But like anything, standing up a new technology in any company, especially one of our size, has its challenges, has its change management challenges, has its cultural challenges, all of those attributes. So I think, even looking back on the time in India, and my youngest son, Harrison, we moved to Thailand. Subsequently, he was born in Thailand. And then we moved back. But all of those things have come with its own degree of change. But again, whether it's poor market conditions, whether it's tough landlords we're trying to negotiate with, whether it's financial restrictions for investment in our properties or things like that, all of those challenges really do in some way, if viewed properly and assessed properly, you can find a nugget or a diamond in there that can change the whole perspective and by virtue change the outcome.
Well, fantastic that you share those personal stories. Thanks. I know I put you on the spot, and sometimes it's good to interject. What is the makeup of Lee Allen, and why are you in this role? The fact that you did those one-way tickets, it just, I think, instilled in yourself like winning is the only option. I'm going to land in India. I'm going to win. I'm going to land in Thailand. I'm going to win. I'm going to do my best at CB. I'm going to win. And now here you are at PetVet. So let's talk about winning as a team. I think when you started, it was just like yourself. And how big is your team today at PetVets?
Oh, we're a very small team, man. We're a very small team. We're a lean, mean, hardy team. I mean, we partner, we've got the lease management accounting, we've got our legal team, we've got the facilities, myself. So we've kind of formed an arbitrage, if you will, multiple functions within the organization. So we are a very lean team. I think when I've compared or had discussions with others that are in some of our competition organizations, their teams in many cases have been 5 or 6x our size. But again, I think we're standing up some of the best processes and management strategies of any caring company that does pet care our size, for sure. So very small team.
Yeah. Well, it's not uncommon. You can always do more with less, but you've got to make the right tech decisions and also have a great team, because you don't want to be bogged down, and certainly your team doesn't want to be bogged down in the day-to-day. Finding information that already exists or recreating information that already exists. They should be focused on the future and driving more and more value. It makes a ton of sense. There's some questions that came across here about the demand for real estate site selection. It's a bit art and science, also inclusive of marketing. So how does that think about the impact of marketing versus site selection when you evaluate success? I don't know if that makes sense. Or
Well, again, so the majority of our growth strategy, we've been an acquisition based company. So we're not solely focused on de novo, which would be more of that site selection practice that's mentioned in the question. So we're identifying target markets that really does have leading healthcare services for pets that are already successful, right? We want to invest in practices that are already successful, and by virtue of that, it comes with a location in many cases for us, right? So there's less dark arts on the site selection side. Now, that being said, we have had some real solid success this year with some relocations, right? Where we've gone in and we've built out a new hospital, a new location, and we've done that in kind of 4 different target markets. So Atlanta, Baltimore, New York City, and a city in Colorado, Longmont, Colorado. And the market strategy for site selection within those target markets was pretty simple, right? We've got a lot of practices across all of those states, and we've got a pretty strong purview on our market saturation and how we're doing and where we're doing well, right? So we're then able to partner more closely with commercial real estate firms. We internally use Buxton, right? There's a lot of different things, a lot of different technology solutions that can drive outcomes for site selection. And obviously, I don't want to endorse any over the other, but whether you're using a Placer or a Buxton or something like that, there's really a whole plethora of technology solutions to help drive and fundamentally inform which markets we want to go into.
Yeah. Okay. On your de novo, you touched on some hospital, some strategic markets, whether you're relocating or building new. And I know you don't do that as often as most that are just starting out. But a related question is, from a permitting perspective, how do you mitigate your risks for new construction and new requirements for, your patients are animals, they're pets, for goodness sakes. So there's a whole bunch of conditions whether the city weighs in and the volume of traffic Why don't you explore that?
Yeah, so the permitting, I mean, so when you think about the construction standards, we will self-perform the QA/QC for the project management that the general contractor will hold, right? So we do have a few strategic architects that we've partnered with across the country,
Okay.
that kind of understand our form and our feel, the materials, the layouts, things like that, that kind of create that client experience. How we can apply that client experience is largely determined by, to your point, um, some of the permitting, right? But before we get to the permitting, again, it's going to be those landlord negotiations, those entitlements under the lease, the tenant improvement investments that we're able to get out of negotiations on the front end. Those really inform where we're going to ultimately, at a micro level, be on this side of town or this side of town. But the permitting aspects, for us are pretty standardized. I mean, we obviously have New York City building code is different than maybe say Longmont, Colorado's building code. But really with the partnership of some of the best GCs, we're able to mitigate those limitations or permitting challenges, if you will.
Got it. Do you find that those GCs are local, or are they national scale? Because, I mean, go ahead.
We always go local. Again, go local. The local GCs, you can always find them in any good market that we enter into is going to have an awesome GC, right? And that's familiar with the vet industry. And so we partner locally, and obviously that helps again mitigate some of those building permit requirements and restrictions. But again, that relationship with the architect, right, who brings relationships with your MEP, engineering team, who is then familiar with those building codes and restrictions, can help design those facilities. Now, I'll tell you one thing that's kind of interesting to that. It goes both for site selection as well as challenges in local markets. The timeline to build and the cost to build right now varies extensively across geographies. The cost to build in a Colorado market versus the cost to build in an Atlanta market versus the cost to build in a Northern California market, right? 3 sites picked same size, and you're going to have, in some cases, huge multipliers on construction costs. So while there are the local permitting challenges that exist, actually the cost to develop varies extensively from market to market right now.
Got it. Got it. Well, great question. It came from Elise from Dogtopia, and the general question was, do you have any recommended vendors or consultants? And I think you've answered it in the sense that always go local. Find the architects, find the GCs, find the permit experts. So there's not really one answer, right? Whether you're Northern California or, like you said, Atlanta or the other places, like everybody's different, but you want to always find the best of the best.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Let's touch on a little bit about PE. Obviously, very active in the market, whether it's medical retail, certainly pet vet care. But is it a good thing that you're seeing, or is it is there some potential trepidation that people should generally watch for if PE is circling? What are your thoughts?
No, I think that private equity is obviously an integral component of our growth model. Truth be told, I think look, all industries right now in pet care have come from this pre-COVID, slammed during COVID, right, and now moving back into this post-COVID world of discretionary capital. And as the cost of capital comes down, I think that we'll start to see those acquisitional strategies will begin to increase and companies will begin to scale. But again, I think that by and large right now, there continues to be an increased demand for pet care services, but there's also a lot of consolidation in the industry. right? And that's where you're seeing some of whether it's pet care, our company or others, there are seeking consolidation opportunities in the industry. And there's really been more of a shift towards kind of a convenience driven model, like telemedicine, mobile clinics, vets coming to your house, right? Because you're just busy and both parents are working, you don't have time to take your dogs. And these trends are really shaping how we plan our future locations and our service offerings. And as we look at kind of those market driven decisions, ensuring that we are not only keeping up with the trends, but in many cases, because of our size and our market saturation, we're actually able to shape a lot of those market trends and continue to focus on, again, providing differentiated medicine.
Wonderful. So here's a question that came in, just kind of piling on to what you just said about telemedicine. Are you all investing in different ways to deliver healthcare to pets through
Yeah,
those means, or is that still kind of
sure.
either confidential or still in the offing?
Sure. No, I mean, there are a lot of confidential discussions to be had there, but I think, look, the truth is with all industries, as you look at the advancements either in pharmaceutical advancements for treatment of different diseases that pets suffer from, or you look at your modality for delivering care, whether that's through utilization of AI or VR or whatever it is. I think that there are market trends that are showing that there is a significant role the technology will continue to play. And specifically, I mean, as we use analytics to drive site selection, AI driven lease management platforms like LeaseCake, right, and others just show those iterative opportunities of transformation. Now, specific to us, we are always looking at what's coming and what's going to be next, and we're finding ways to invest in that. And we are forming partnerships in the marketplace to ensure that we are aligned both from a procurement perspective as well as strategic partner perspective, aligned with what's coming next, right? So that is a key focus for us. And if you want to be someone in our industry or in really in any industry that drives differentiation in your service, then you have to be aware of what's coming and integrating that in the proper way into our overall management strategy and operational outcome determinations.
Yeah, perfect opportunity to talk about new innovations and new technologies. What are your thoughts on AI, and how are you potentially applying it within
Yeah.
portfolio?
Well, again, I think that's a huge piece of it, right? So the old days, right, when I started, everything was Times New Roman 12 font on a computer screen, and you did have to read all 45, 70 pages or whatever. And then you got a little bit more advanced, you can hit the Control F to find those secret words, right? Well, now we're finding with AI integration into our lease management strategy, it allows us, if we are looking at specific clauses, to answer an off the cuff question that say came up 3 minutes ago and we need to provide an answer for it. AI is really enabling us to make strategic decisions on a more rapid basis that in many cases are grounded in or backed up by leading research, right? So what used to take us, if we wanted to do a scorecard analysis across our leases, just a good, bad, ugly, right? We want to rank and file our portfolio. That was a highly manual process that would involve personality subjugation, would involve Excel, all those things. Well, now you can interactively do that with AI, and I at least in my own opinion, we don't know where it's going to go. We don't know who's going to be the quote winner of that race. So we have with most of our solutions have tried to partner with firms that are AI agnostic as we look to see really who's going to be the winner in that space.
Wonderful. Yeah, we've leaned very heavily into AI, and it is all about efficiency and time savings, not having to chase and wait for emails to be answered, but having information at your fingertips.
That's right.
Yeah, good. So the good, bad, and the ugly. I mean, that's like, how do you score your real estate portfolio? You talked about Excel, you talked about, putting a bunch of minds to it. Do you have a good, bad, and ugly in your portfolio to date? Or are you still working on it?
Yeah, we're still working on that, right? So again, with 2 years, kind of the first year was to identify what was going to be that strategic, what are going to be our strategic growth initiatives, what levers are we going to put forward to ensure that we're growing in a scalable way. And then halfway through that first year, we landed on kind of what are our core components. We went to market by the into that, really, I think this was January of last year, had made the fundamental decisions of which strategies, which technologies we were going to implement to assist us in that growth. And now we're at the point where we've got 1 year worth of information. We've got 1 year of portfolio data that we're tracking in a consistent way across all these different KPIs. And lease management is a part of that for us. This year, where we are in our growth model, is to take that and kind of move from the transition, standardization, and now we're into the optimization phase. So I'm really excited about that this year is going to be really, our focus is going to be to take what we know and implement those necessary steps to advance where we are, right? And AI is going to be a huge, or it's an integral part of that. I think, it would be remiss if we didn't admit that really as an industry. But we are right now in the process of kind of the rank and file of our portfolio. And as part of that, we've identified opportunities for consolidations and things like that. We've identified opportunities for additional and tail growth, things like that. So it's been rewarding.
Good deal. Well, let's see. We're nearing the top of the hour, and I've always got to ask this question. You've had such an incredible life, international, some of the largest companies in the world. What's one piece of advice that you took to heart at whatever stage in your career, personal, professional, that you live by today?
I would say that's a great question, by the way. It forces a man to be humble, doesn't it? I think one of the lessons is, identifying how you can have the greatest impact where you are. The old adage, I've got 4 beautiful children, and my hope and goal is that they learn that life is not about the destination, it's the journey, right? And focusing on that bigger picture and understanding how each decision that an individual makes or an organization makes, each individual decision formulates that journey as you move forward. And I can tell you that some of my greatest joys have been realizing that growth isn't just about speed. Personal growth or organizational growth isn't just about speed and trying to get there quickly. It's about sustainability. It's about sustainable growth that allows myself, yourself, anybody to remain happy and joyous in the face of challenges, right? Whether you're learning how to live in a third world country, or you're determining what levers of optimization you're going to try to move forward to enhance your lease management strategy. So I think the best long-term strategies for myself have been that balance between maybe ambition and resilience.
Well said. Thank you very much, Lee. It's been an absolute pleasure. Today, we talked about the real estate lessons from PetVet's 450 locations. We've got a couple of webinars coming up for those that are still on. Appreciate everybody sticking through and asking very pointed questions. We try to answer them immediately on the fly. The recording is going to be available, but the 2 webinars that are coming up middle of March, here in a few weeks, it'll be all about how do you get ready for turning your lease administration solution, whether it's on spreadsheets or in a binder somewhere or some legacy system, and getting ready for a transition into a modern tech solution. And then the next one that we have, it's the beginning of April, so that's actually not that far away. Jersey Mike's leadership is going to be on talking about the Blackstone acquisition, how they took this 50-year brand and was able to focus on unit level economics and provide something that was very very explosive from an opportunity perspective. $8 billion. So we're looking forward to sharing that with, it's Hoyt Jones is going to be on that on April 1st. But again, Lee, I'm going to see you in Montana probably. We got to find that equine facility. we got to get that open.
Amen, brother. There you go.
All right. Well, thanks. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Signing off. Take care. Bye-bye.